Welcome to the Dark Ozarks. We are diving into our second installment of dark history, legends, and hauntings of the Queen City of the Ozarks, Springfield, Missouri, and there's a lot to cover. We'll get back to that in a minute, but first we want to remind you that the Dark Ozarks podcast is now available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and about any other podcast platform you use. So what is scary about Springfield's past?
Well, there's a lot to cover in the dark tales of Springfield. Queen City fits well in the noir department, from Bonnie and Clyde to the Young Brothers Massacre to Hauntings. We may be talking about Springfield in even more episodes in the coming year.
And that's before we get to the three missing women or legends about vampires in the tunnels beneath downtown.
There have been a lot of things happen in Springfield that were very dark, and some that are hard to explain. And of course, it's up to everyone to really decide what actually happened in many of these cases.
We will discuss what you thought was merely the largest city in the southern Missouri Ozarks. But first, we want to invite everyone to like, follow, etc. Dark Ozarks is on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Plus, we encourage you to follow the podcast. While you're on Facebook, you can subscribe to the private Dark Ozarks subscribers group. Why, you may ask? Yes, it does have a small subscription fee, but you receive exclusive content and behind-the-scenes info that you don't get anywhere else. It also helps us bring more original content to Dark Ozarks. You can click the subscribe button on the page. You'll have to log in since there's a payment, and we appreciate everyone.
And now you can get Dark Ozarks t-shirts for sale at darkozarks.com and paranormalsciencelab.com.
We encourage everyone to check out Always Buying Books in Joplin, Missouri, in person and online on Facebook, and their website, alwaysbuyingbooks.com. For all of your reading needs, including a large section on the paranormal, history, and more, not to mention the building's haunted. Tell Bob and Elise that we sent you.
We also want to thank Beard Engine Brewing Company in Alba, Missouri. Beard Engine Brewing is the only English-style brewery in Missouri and has been twice named Missouri's best brewery by the Missouri Brewers Association. Great beer and food in a historical building with a noir past, and also the building is haunted. Tell Nate and Tiff that we sent you.
Well, Dark Tales out of Springfield. I think jumping off place for a lot of people is probably the story of the missing three women.
I would agree. And this is in the category of true crime. And we have moved out of the category of paranormal. We are just looking at the category of true crime. It was a crime. It is still an unsolved case. Mm-hmm. And this is something that I think is fair to say impacted the entire Springfield population when it occurred.
It did. And I can say that firsthand because I was living there.
Yes.
And the 90s was a long time ago now, it seems, and the world was slightly different. And some people who didn't live through the initial part of the case may be surprised of how much it has affected everyone. And it was not a case that people thought, oh, these things never happen, or it can't, or even that it can't happen here. It was just, it seemed to be so bold and not many clues, and almost the being too effective in some ways of covering it made it more surreal, because the coverage was very intense. And although you did have 24-hour news channels on TV, people were not exposed to endless media the way they are now. And uh, I know for me, there was something about driving around town and seeing the posters. They became very emblematic of the idea that no one is safe. It can happen anytime, anywhere. This was a time when Springfield was not known for, rampant violence or a lot of murders, kidnappings, that kind of thing. And you have two girls who literally just graduated from high school that day, and one of their mothers disappear.
Yes.
And it was everyone's nightmare. And additionally, Stacy McCall's mother, Janice, became the face of the case. And so everyone's nightmare became everyone's nightmare for her, I think. And that it's a nightmare that no one has woken up from, including her.
Which you really cannot effectively interpret that kind of ongoing cultural impact and social and emotional impact on a community. At this point, it mostly exists under the skin, but obviously it is something that really hits home for so many people, and it is one of the top subjects that Dark Ozarks has often been queried on.
It is.
And up until this point, we really have not explored the case or the situation, either one.
That's true. And in part, I think we want to make it clear to people, we don't want this to turn into just speculation and rumors and comments and so forth, because we want to be very cognizant of the families, and as well as investigators who have been tied to this case for a very long time.
A very, very long time. Situations like this are difficult because on one hand, we do have members of the public that are wanting us to discuss this topic. And they're, while I suspect highly remote, there's still the possibility that perhaps because of continued public discussion, that something might come about of it.
Yes.
So that's on the positive notes. The other side to that is that we never want to be exploitive of a topic, of an element of our culture. This could be our family members. This could be our community. It was your community at the time.
Yes.
And so how, you and I really haven't talked that much about this, so we'll just talk about it right here. How in any of these types of situations, of course, you have a lot of experience with perhaps not cases specifically like this, but certainly cases involving threats of violence or violence towards others.
Yes.
In the Southwest Missouri region, as a practicing attorney. And I know that you have made it a great deal of your focus to be a protector and an advocate for individuals that are in a situation that they may not be able to protect or advocate for themselves.
I did for a number of years, yes.
Yes. So you do have a great deal of experience in that regard. How do you feel is the best way to approach not just the missing three, but situations like this?
If people have information and not just speculation or complete, third, fourth hand hearsay, be sure and share it with law enforcement. But rumors and innuendo don't really help. This particular case, the last I knew, they'd had over 20,000 leads that they have to filter through. So if someone is just spreading gossip because they think it's a good story or to be heard, it really is wasting time and effort that could be hopefully spent on other leads. And it is an active investigation. Warrants, have been executed not that many years ago, and you never know when something may come up. I've personally known, law enforcement people, as well as prosecutors, as well as journalists who were very connected to this case. And I can say it had a definite impact on them. And so taking it seriously and not pursuing it as if it's a TV show or, a game is the best thing. And I have to say, I admire Janice McCall. She has held up amazingly. I'm not sure how she's done it all these years, 30 years, and has maintained a not-for-profit and still holds hope that, her daughter may come home someday. So I think that how people approach this, they really need to think about it as, what would you do if you were standing in front of a family member, or if this was your family? Really, really address the golden rule.
Yes. that explained and that said, what are the particulars of this case that so captured the community's attention?
I think in large part, the fact that they seemingly disappeared without a trace. And in the longer video, which will be uploaded tomorrow, we will go into a little more as to why that may or may not be the case, that and why it appeared that way, and why there were so few clues.
Yes, it is. It is something that has just continued to impact really just the entire Southwest Missouri region, but specifically the Springfield community. And,
yes.
Of course, our hearts go out to the family members and friends who are still wondering and still have so many questions regarding this. And if you do have very specifically credible information, then we recommend that you contact law enforcement.
Yes, and we appreciate everyone. We'll be discussing this more in depth on the video that will be up here tomorrow night, as well as other dark tales from Springfield. Don't forget to check out upcoming events and merchandise at darkozarks.com and paranormalsciencelab.com. Thank you again to Always Buying Books and Beard Engine Brewing Company for helping bring the Dark Ozarks to everyone.
And on the next episode, we're going to be discussing Dark Winter Tales and Old Christmas right here in the Ozarks. Catch the Dark Ozarks podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and other podcast platforms. Thank you to everyone. And remember, there are no easy answers.